Anya's quest. Anya, Sloane of the Bromwich. The royal herald's voice echoed through the courtyard. Hunters and volunteers scanned the crowd, searching for the person named. Though they seemed curious, Anya sensed their relief. They were glad it wasn't their name called. Anya took a step forward, aware of the many eyes fixed on her. She stopped at the foot of the elevated platform where the king was seated. "Do you agree to go to the Birchbury woodlands and to find the curse's origin and end it?" the king asked loudly. "Yes," Anya replied, bowing her head. The kingdom of Perrin was under a curse. Every 2 years, droughts plagued the land, leaving barely enough crops to survive. Every 6 months, the king selected someone to venture into the famous Birchbury woodlands to locate the source of the curse. According to palace records, that's where the curse was believed to be buried by a witch who held some resentment against the king's ancestors. However, whoever entered the forest never returned. Anya came from a small village called Bromwich. She grew up helping her parents on the farm. But because of the curse, her father fell behind in taxes, and the family couldn't afford to treat her sick mother. That's when Anya decided to take action. She grabbed her bow and arrows and volunteered to enter the forest to find the curse. When Anya returned home to say goodbye, her parents greeted her with sad faces. "Oh, my child, you don't have to do this," her mother cried. "I can do it," Anya promised, hugging her mother tightly. "I will find the source of the curse and end it once and for all." Anya's parents didn't try to stop her. They trusted their daughter, but they couldn't help but worry about her safety. A week later, Anya stepped into the Birchbury woodland. Right away, she noticed the sounds fading until there was nothing but heavy silence surrounding her. There was no wind passing through the trees, and the leaves didn't rustle. The thick canopy overhead blocked the sunlight from reaching the ground, making the forest seem eerie. Despite it being summer in the kingdom, a thick layer of snow covered the forest floor and clung to the trees, making it freezing cold inside the forest. At first, Anya started to doubt herself. She felt scared and cold, wondering if volunteering had been a good idea. But when she thought about her parents, her determination grew, and she focused on moving deeper into the forest. Anya walked for what felt like hours, maybe even days. Inside the forest, she lost track of time. Everything seemed the same. She couldn't tell when night fell or when the sun rose. "Take one brave step at a time," Anya whispered her father's words. "Real courage is about facing fear and overcoming it." Soon, Anya ran out of the food that she had in her sack. Hunger slowed her down and made her thoughts fuzzy, but she couldn't turn back now. Just when she started to worry she was lost for good, she stumbled upon a clearing in the forest. In the middle stood the biggest tree she'd ever seen. Anya knew it immediately. When her eyes landed on the tree, she felt deep down that this was where the curse originated from. Anya rushed toward the tree, but stopped short when it vanished from her sight. Suddenly, she found herself standing inside the palace. There was no one around except the king, seated on his throne. "You have failed, Anya, Sloane of Bromwich," he said heavily. "Because of you, the kingdom will continue to suffer. But Anya attempted to explain that she had found the tree, but the king ordered his soldiers to throw her out. She screamed at the king, begging for another chance, but he ignored her. As the guards tossed her out of the palace, she suddenly found herself standing outside her house. The transition was sudden, but the cries coming from inside her house didn't allow her to think about it for long. Before Anya could take a step toward the door, it flew open and her father rushed out. "Where were you? Your mother was calling for you in her last moments." Her father wept, his voice trembling. Anya's heart sank. She staggered toward the door. Inside, her mother lay still on the cot, cold and weak. Anya began to cry as she gently held her mother's lifeless hand. "I failed, Mother," she sobbed. "I let everyone down." "I won't allow you to leave the house now," her father said firmly, his voice stern. "You'll stay here, forever." Anya wept and wept. Just when she thought all of it was over, she recalled her father's voice. "Anya, my child, you must always find courage within yourself. Fight against your inner demons. Don't let them take over you." Her father's voice echoed in her mind. That's when Anna understood. She was still in the forest. These scenes were just illusions, a test of her bravery. Wiping her tears, Anya stood up to leave. "Where are you going?" her father demanded. "To make everything right," she replied. She pushed open the door and stepped out, only to find herself back in front of the majestic tree. As her vision cleared and everything else faded away, she noticed a necklace hanging from one of the tree's branches. Its gemstone was large, about the size of her palm, and it was dark with wisps of smoke swirling around it. Taking a deep breath, Anya pulled back an arrow in her bow and took aim. "Anya, what are you doing? Your mother has just passed away." She heard her father's shouts echoing in the forest. "You have failed," the king shouted. "You left me alone to die," her mother's soft cry echoed. Anya closed her eyes against the magical whispers and gathered her thoughts. Then she opened her eyes and let the arrow loose. The arrow sailed towards the gemstone, hitting right in the center. The stone cracked with a shattering sound and burst into dark smoke. In the blink of an eye, everything changed around Anya. Suddenly, sunlight reached the ground and started melting the snow. She heard birds chirping as they returned to the trees. That's when Anya turned back, knowing she had successfully overcome the challenges where many knights and brave men had failed. She had saved her kingdom from the curse. But first, she needed to find something to eat.